Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to yet another edition of 3 Years Serving You. Today we're chatting with the Couva North MP, Ramona Ramdial, who also sits as Minister in the Ministry of State and the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources. We are going to find out from her some of what is being done by the People's Partnership Administration in executing its 7th pillar of interconnective development in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's welcome Minister Ramdial. Thank you for joining with us.
Thank you for having me.
Minister, let's begin with the Minister of Water Resources and the Environment. What is that ministry about?
Well, in June 2012, the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources was created in the last reshuffle of government. Now, the purpose for this ministry was that when we compare ourselves as a developing country to the already developed countries like America, Canada, and the UK, we realized that within their government there was a Ministry of the Environment. We looked at Singapore also, and in the Singaporean model we saw water resources attached to environment. And when you look at the Millennium Goals and the United Nations objectives and purposes, you are seeing now that there is a clear purpose and a clear pathway into preserving and conserving our environment. And where you have the governments of the day around the world and the authorities and all of the agencies, they are taking a proactive approach in coming together as, as authorities in power in order to engage in preserving and conserving the environment. As you know, we live in a Caribbean, the small island developing states, and what is happening is that climate change plays a very, very important part with respect to our development overall. We rely on tourism. Other Caribbean countries, for other Caribbean countries, that is their sole and only avenue of income. And if you have climate change affecting our environment, then it trickles down, of course, to the impact on the economy. In Trinidad and Tobago here, we're a little bit fortunate in that we have oil and gas. However, we are looking to diversify the economy, and we are looking to go into avenues of ecotourism especially. I know around the world globally, one of the trend and patterns with respect to tourism is the Caribbean islands and what they have to offer with respect to its tropical climate, the beaches, the forest, and all of that. So people are taking an interest in venturing to the Caribbean islands because of the environment that exists here. So with all of that in mind, we decided to form the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, and fortunately we are in June of 2013, which would make us a year in existence, and during that year we have achieved a lot. I will just mention with respect to legislation, we have gone in and laid the beverage container bill in Parliament. We are also looking at a waste management rules that we are also going to lay in Parliament, that is before the LRC right now. We have also done the air pollution rules that are going to be laid in Parliament later on this year to regulate pollution with respect to our air and emanations and emissions, from industries. And we continue to look at our wildlife, our flora and our fauna. With respect to our wildlife, we have noticed over the years that hunting has put pressure on the wildlife population in Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, about 3 months ago, we went out on public consultation where we were looking to see what we can do with the illegal hunting aspect in Trinidad and Tobago. And there was a wide call throughout the country, including Tobago, for a ban on hunting for at least 2 years to allow the wildlife population to regenerate naturally. We're also looking at other avenues where we can regenerate the wildlife population, and that is with respect to creating an enabling environment to breed our wildlife species. And there's a professor in UWI who has done some extensive studies that has proven to be very successful in terms of breeding in captivity to regenerate the wildlife population. So that's a number of things that we are dealing with respect to the environment. We are also partnering with the Ministry of Local Government to come up with a proper waste management policy. As I mentioned earlier, the waste management rules. And therefore, we're going to be looking at our dumps across Trinidad and Tobago and looking at ways to mitigate the effects of these dumps. As you know, the Beetham dump, we are terrorized by burning, especially the city area, ever so often during certain times of the year to regulate the garbage, and also for the scavengers when they look for their copper and all these other things. So they burn, and that is a big hazard to human health. So we are looking at moving the dump from the Beetham to another area. We are also looking at recycling. So recycling through the Green Fund of the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, we are looking to either set up our own recycling plant or partner with the private sector where we can, with respect to the revenue that would be needed to set up, partner with the private sector in order to do such. And that's just the environmental aspect. When we look at water resources, that other half of the ministry, WASA and water resources fall under this ministry. And we have been, over the past 3 years, trying to expand the grid, WASA's grid or water networks, especially in rural areas. Over the years, we have seen a degeneration with respect to basic amenities in rural areas. It's a famous phrase that we use, rural neglect. And therefore, WASA has gone in and introduced water projects in all of these rural areas, which will allow an individual or individual homes to benefit from pipe-borne supply of water. So we continue to expand that grid. When you look also at water pollution and wastewater, we were able, and we were very, very happy at the event where we were able to solicit one of the biggest IDB loans ever in the Western Hemisphere, and that is, of course, a $500 million for water treatment plants in Trinidad and Tobago. So what is happening? We got this loan over a 3-year phase basis where we will be able to implement our water treatment plants in order to recycle. So it's a lot of wastewater systems coming on stream. And this is one way in which we can conserve and reuse and recycle our water. So, for example, when these plants are set up, the water will be recycled, and of course it can be used for industrial purposes and other domestic purposes. Not particularly drinking, because we have our natural sources for our drinking supply of water, but this recycled water can be used for industrial and domestic purposes otherwise. And it, of course, will allow, when you look at the overall picture, it will allow for us to conserve our natural resources in a sustainable manner. As it is right now, we depend for our everyday needs with respect to water on our natural sources of water. So you have our rivers, and of course you have the average rainfall that happens during the rainy season where we collect and of course we use. But one good example is that of the Beetham wastewater plant, where it is that they are producing a very good quality of recycled water that is not being utilized right now. So therefore we're going to harness that together with the other wastewater treatment plants that we're going to set up, and we are going to utilize water in a very holistic manner.
All right. We're continuing our conversation with the Minister of the Environment and Water Resources, Ramona Ramdial. She's also the Couva North MP. When we come back, we will focus on the Couva North constituency and how she manages the ministry and her constituency responsibilities. Stay with us.
It is against the law to drink and drive. When you are caught, you are liable to pay a fine of $8,000 or face up to 3 years imprisonment. Don't make this happen to you. Do not drink and drive.
Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with the Minister of the Environment and Water Resources, Ramona Ramdial. She's also the Member of Parliament for Couva North, a young woman indeed who's been able to manage both. Minister, let's ask about your constituency responsibilities, but more so, you're new to politics.
Yes.
You'd be considered a newbie if you were. What was it like and what motivated you to come into politics?
Well, I've always been an activist, first and foremost an environmental activist. I've also been part of the UNC UTOM for a number of years before. And I have been always at the community level in my area where I grew up. I've always been involved in the community work and social work of the area, especially with young people. And from that, I just transferred. It was natural to transfer into the politics of the day. And of course, I subscribed to the UNC and their policies. And I was very much happy when the Honorable Prime Minister now, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, decided to take control of the United National Congress via the internal elections. And from there on, I jumped onto her bandwagon, of course, through her requesting so, and I was able to move along with her to this stage as it is. In addition to that, professionally, I was a teacher for the past 6 years. I taught at Vishnu Boys Hindu College, both at Form 4, Form 5, and Form 6 levels, environmental science and geography. So I'm very much in my field, yes, so to speak, now, being here in the ministry. But with respect to the constituency of Couva North, I must say that I'm very, very proud of the achievements of the Couva North team, because it's just not me alone. It's a team that I work with at the constituency level, and I'm very, very proud. The executive of the Couva North constituency office, the staff at the constituency office, they all work very hard, tirelessly on a daily basis. Even the local government practitioners with respect to the councillors and the aldermen, we have all been working together as a team to ensure that we develop the constituency of Couva North. But in 2010, when I walked, you know, in every area there are needs on the ground, and in some areas they will differ as compared to other areas. So in Couva North, the most prominent need that arose when we campaigned in 2010 was that of basic infrastructure. And when I say basic infrastructure, it was roads, bridges, drainage, proper drainage, lights for recreational areas, water in areas where there weren't any, and a whole host of basic infrastructural needs. And I realized that I need to tackle this first and foremost. And so that is what I started doing. So to date, I have paved numerous roads through the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, and through my lobbying, we've been able to get government resources in. And I realized that the mandate overall of generally for the government was that of basic infrastructural needs, because even when we looked across the scope of Trinidad and Tobago, we realized that basic infrastructure had been neglected for so many years. So we decided to go in really at the community levels and try to develop from that standpoint. So the constituents of Couva North, they're very happy. We've opened community centers, we've refurbished community centers, we have lit up many recreational grounds, the Edinburgh recreational ground, the Mulchan Suchan recreational ground, and soon we'll be going into Brickfield to light up that ground also. We have also been able to build pavilions on these recreational grounds, and we have continued with our water projects, because there are areas in my constituency where there was no pipe-borne supply of water. I mean, it was really disheartening to see in a suburban area of Couva, to see communities still without pipe-borne supply of water. And therefore, it was very important that we get the basic amenities in. And, you know, any country, you would see that for true development to happen, it must start with that community development at that community level. So you enhance the lives of your constituents and your citizenry, and therefore overall you're able to achieve that human development, increase in the human development index. And therefore that is what we're looking at. In addition to that, we have had some challenges. Not everything is all paved and golden. We have had a lot of challenges with respect to the crime situation. Couva North is a densely populated area, and there is, from time to time, seasonal crime. So what I did, I introduced the community policing initiative in Couva North. As you know, that worked very well in other areas, and we were able to go from community to community, set up a community council, policing council, and it was all for the purpose of sharing intelligence to the various police stations and to those in control of law and order, so that they can help fight crime. So we were able to achieve a lot from that. So we were able to also identify where the drug blocks were. We were able to identify who were the car thieves in certain areas, and a raid would be instituted, and you know that would happen. With respect to the young people in Couva North, what happened there is that right now we see generally across the board that there's a high rate of youth unemployment. So you have a lot of young professionals coming out of UE from other institutions, and they are without a job. So what we have realized that we needed to do was to create spaces for our young people. So what we do as MPs is that we, of course, act as agents for different ministries in trying to place our qualified young people with respect to employment. I also looked at bringing communities together, because there were certain pockets in Couva North where the communities were disjointed, and there were a lot of unhappiness with respect to people-to-people relations and the social relationships. So what I did, I introduced the Couva North Movie Night, And through that, we have the young people of Couva coming out during the school holidays in order to, just come out with their families and enjoy an evening of free movies. And we were able to do that. So those are some of the initiatives that I embarked upon.
Melissa, before I bring an end to this part of the thing, I do want to ask you, what was the transition like coming from a teacher into politics? They say it's a man's world.
Yes. I beg to differ. I think very much I am all about equality. My personal transition wasn't that horrible, so to speak, in terms of getting used to this work, 24-hour work, because I was always very active before. Even when I taught and my employment at the school, after working hours, I would be, actively engaged in other activities. So I'm always on the go. So for me, fitting into this was no big thing, really.
What's a regular day like? From how early in the morning to what time do you go?
I work non-stop. Once I have my phone with me and my iPad with me, I'm always communicating. Even if I'm not out on the field, I'm working on my iPad, I'm working via my phone, I'm taking calls, and I make myself very accessible. That's the thing, which may act against me later on. Because I'm so accessible, I get numerous calls daily. Sometime 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock, somebody will be calling if there's an emergency or disaster in the constituency. But I really enjoy my job, so therefore right now I'm all accommodating. I have no problems with someone calling me 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. But I work all around the clock.
What do you do on a downtime, if you have any?
Movies. I am a movie buff. I love to go to the movies.
What's your favorite movie at this time?
I'm a sci-fi follower, big fan. So right now I'm looking at World War Z and of course Superman, because I'm also into in my era when I grew up, it was comic books, right? So I'm into that also.
All right. We're chatting with the Minister of Water Resources and Environment, Ramona Ramdial, the Couva North MP. When we come back in our final segment, we find out what's next for the Minister, especially in her ministry and her constituency. We'll be back.
Trisha, you see my bathing suit?
Granny, where you going? We have to go down to the social development office to collect your pension check again.
What dotishness you're talking? I collect that a long time. It went straight into my bank account. I used my bank card and take it out.
So quick?
Yes, it was easy. And I didn't waste no time lining up in no bank. No. It was easy as pie. That is why I have spare time to go to the beach. You have my bathing suit?
Granny, they activate the program already?
Yes, it's up and running. All people have to do is go in the bank, sign up, get the card, and that's it. They had to wait on no postman. No, easy as pie. So I'm going to the beach. Hey, I could borrow your bikini.
What?
You want with all these strings?
Granny, you are not
and
going to
all
any
the
beach.
side outs.
Direct deposit. It's direct banking, direct payment. Call 800-4775 for further info. Direct deposit, making sense.
We're in our final segment with the Minister, Ramona Ramdial, and she just told us some very interesting things about her movie likes. In this segment, we focus on what's next for the Minister in her ministry and her constituency. Minister, thank you for staying with us. As we continue to look at the future, I know that the People's Partnership in its manifesto of 2010, 7 Pillars of Interconnected Development, charts the way forward. That document is now a public document in Parliament.
Yes.
What's next for the ministry?
Well, for the ministry, we will continue with our legislative agenda. As you know, the environment has been somewhat ignored over the past years. So therefore, there's a strong push for legislation or legislative agenda with respect to preserving and conserving our environment. With respect to the water aspect of the ministry, we continue as the main agency providing water for all. That is WASA, of course.
But on the issue of WASA,
Yes.
WASA is a sore point for a lot of citizens. You just say WASA,
Yes.
and a lot of people are very angry. 1, because of the water supply. 2, because they dig up the roads and so on.
Yes, yes.
What has been done to improve WASA's credibility, at least?
Well, what we have done, we have started restructuring WASA first and foremost. We have looked at the management, middle management, top management. We've also looked at the operation side of WASA, which is most important, the operation side. And what we have realized that we have embarked upon, with respect to the management, we have embarked upon, of course, having WASA generate revenue for itself. So you don't have that pressure on government resources. So what we have done, WASA has gone out also and done works for other ministries where we were able to bring in revenue stream for WASA to carry out its operation. So that's one new thing that has been happening. Second one is that we have looked at cost optimization across the board. So we have looked at where we can cut costs, where we can, of course, make things a little more efficient. We have also, with respect to the operation side, we have engaged our contractors now because we've got numerous calls over the years when we started to expand the water grid that the rehabilitation of the environment after WASA done its work has been very poor. So we have engaged our contractors and we have read the Riot Act to them, more or less, where we have instituted, especially for road rehabilitation, that it needs to be done on par and, of course, at a very high quality delivery for the citizenry across Trinidad and Tobago. Thirdly, we have looked also at our customer service representation. So we have tried and we are in the process of increasing our customer service representation, especially where you report leaks and you report damages within the grid that WASA controls. So we've been able to also improve our customer service to that extent. So it's a work in progress. I mean, at the end of the day, you won't see the results from many of our measures that we're implementing now anytime in the short term. But I know that we're starting to reap benefits with respect to our midterm policy, both as a ministry and as a government.
In terms of WASA's delivery, and allow me to spend just a moment on WASA, because it's a really sore point for a lot of people.
Yes.
We get lots of calls on WASA and so on. In terms of delivery, what is government's focus and in terms of delivery and implementation in terms of supply for residents? What is it like now? What you met and what is it like now and where you want to go?
When we came in 2010, a lot of areas were still at 24/1. 24/2 water supply. So in those areas, we've been able to improve the water supply from 24/1/2 to 24/5, 24/7. We have also been able, it was an 80% increase, if I'm not mistaken, with respect to the overall supply as it is right now, not new areas, but the overall supply, we've been able to achieve an 80% increase in a sustainable supply to these households. The only challenge that we have as an agency, that is WASA, is that we have no detection method with respect to leaks and busted mains and all of that. So what is happening is that we depend on the public to relay that information for us. And of course, we have a lag time there. You have the wastage of water, you have the communication links not following through and all of that. But we have looked at really increasing our supply. As I said, in areas of 24/1/2, we have gone to 24/5/7. The objective and the great goal is, of course, to have every household have a 24/5, 24/7 supply of water. We are in the process of building a second desalination plant, and that would start very soon. And of course, there we will be able now to strengthen and reinforce the water supply in the areas of east and south. Right now, we have one desalination plant, and that is in Point Lisas, and that provides south and central, a large area with water. But we want to expand that grid so we will have a greater security. Water security is what is most important to us right now.
I know that some works are taking place. For example, if you travel along the bus route, a lot of work taking place there. What is that about?
We're changing the mains. The Hollis main, that is a major main that carries water along the east-west corridor. And we're in the process of redoing those mains and changing them because they've been old and they've been there for a number of years. So we're in the process, and it's all about increasing the quality and the level of service that WASA has to offer to the citizenry.
All right. Let's move on from WASA to the environment. A lot of problems in terms of littering and people focusing on the environment. They throw things out their vehicles. What can government do to stop that?
Well, I would say it's a two-pronged approach. As I said before, government and ministries are responsible up to a certain point. So we are responsible for the policy, for the legislation, and of course for education and awareness, to put it into three very summarized avenues. But what is happening, what I have noticed as a young minister, and even my counterparts and my colleagues and general population, is that we need to have a proactive population. In Trinidad, when you look at flooding yearly, one of the major causes of flooding is that of water pollution and land pollution. So you see all of this garbage clogging our drains and our rivers, and it's plastic bottle. And that was one reason why, and I'll deviate a bit, that we decided to lay the beverage container bill to have a nationwide cleanup and clearing of the beverage containers across Trinidad and Tobago. But in addition to that, the population themselves, we need a mindset and a culture change. Because when you travel to other countries that are developed, you can't litter. You cannot pelt something out your car or pelt something out while you're walking, because it's not allowed. You're charged, you're imprisoned, you're fined for a certain period of time. And therefore, the population of Trinidad and Tobago needs to make that change. We can do so much. We can provide the enabling environment. We can have all the properly legislation and laws and policies, but if the individual citizen, he or she, does not adhere to what is the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, then we would get nowhere. And I'll give you an example. For example, the Diego Martin disaster we had a couple months ago, and just permit me to speak about that a little bit. When I went on the field, because I toured with WASA, and when that Diego Martin disaster happened, and we went up to the hills, and we saw a lot of illegal housing there, and squatters living there, and all of that. That was one of the major contributing factor to the landslips and the landslides that came down, because they cleared the hills, first of all, some for agriculture, and secondly, the others were cleared for housing. And we understand that there's a housing shortage in Trinidad and Tobago. However, we have to be law-abiding citizens. We cannot afford to be lawless or that lawless all the time. And when we went in there, we were speaking to the community residents, and we were like, well, you know that there are illegal squatting here. What did you do about it? Because this is what is causing part of the disaster now. And they spoke about, of course, not, really caring about who came and put up a house overnight and all of that. So we really need to be law-abiding citizens. So it's a two-pronged, proactive approach.
What's next for you, Minister, in terms of, can we see Ramona Ramdial contesting in the next election in Trinidad and Tobago?
It's up, of course, to the leadership of the party, but I think my stint as a minister and an MP has spoken for itself. I'm all about really serving and helping constituents, helping the people of Trinidad and Tobago, especially the young people of our country. And therefore, if it is the party sees it fit to accept me a second time in running, I'll be much, much, much grateful for that. But at the end of the day, I like where I am right now, and I can only see progress from here.
What sort of message would you like to send to Trinidad and Tobago in terms of the environment and water resources?
The message that I would like to send is that I am on the assumption that everyone is, they're well informed, they're educated, and therefore I want to encourage that we continue to be proactive citizens, we continue to do what is right for the environment. We need to be mindful of the global changes, climate change and all of that, and we need to inculcate, especially in our young children, a lifestyle that encourages a lot of conservation and preservation, non-wastage, minimalist lifestyle.
Minister Ramona, thank you for joining with us.
Thank you very much.
We've been chatting with the Minister of Water Resources and Environment, as well as the Couva North MP, Ramona Ramdial. She spent a lot of time chatting about some of the major issues, including WASA, a very sore point for most citizens. On behalf of the Minister and the entire team, I wish to thank you for joining us. Stay with us. We've got much more for you. I'm Larry Lumsden. Thank you for joining us.